Laughter is a gift that can unite people in a way that nothing else really can. And used appropriately, it can bring people together around any cause. Public speakers use laughter to ease their audience so that they can relax and enjoy the presentation. We use humor in virtually every situation in life. Today, I am really blessed to bring to you a comedian who uses improv and laughter to bring people together. But it's really not all fun and games. Laughter and humor can be used to heal our wounds from life. There are scars that people have from a very young age, and laughter can help heal that. And we're going to learn about that in our conversation today. Although the conversation is about laughter, it's actually a pretty serious conversation, but it's just full of beautiful wisdom and nuggets that you can use in everyday life. If you stay to the end, you'll get a couple of jokes just to throw in to lighten up the situation. But I think you're going to enjoy this conversation, and I just want to thank you for stopping by. Welcome to Longing for More, where Christians come to strengthen their faith, revive their soul, and learn to live their lives with a sense of fulfillment and peace. Listen each week to learn how to incorporate your faith into your daily activities, stop wandering through life feeling empty and unfulfilled, and begin to live your more. Let's get started. Hey everybody, as promised, I have a very special guest with us today. He is a fellow podcaster and a little bit a different approach than we've had on the show before. I'm just really excited to bring Dave Ebert to be with us for a while today. So as always, I'd like Dave for you to just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, thank you so much, Ivana. I really appreciate being on. As she said, my name is Dave Ebert, and the first question I always get out of the way is, no, I'm not related. I do critique films on my own, but not for 6 and 7 figures a year.
Yet.
Yet. But I do improv comedy. That's my main thing that I like to do as far as my ministry and just trying to make the world a little bit better place. I also, as you said, I do a podcast. It's called Gifts for Glory podcast. And Gifts for Glory is all about celebrating and promoting men and women who use their gifts for God's glory, whether it's in a creative venture, whether it's just using your talents as even an accountant, as somehow serving people and serving God. So that's what that show is all about. I do have an improv ministry called Well-Versed Comedy. We do just clean, family-friendly comedy. We've performed at Second City. We've performed in Indianapolis, church events. And it's all about just bringing light into the world and also bringing people together. Because when you get a room of people laughing together, nobody in that room feels alone because they're now connected on a very subconscious spiritual level because they all realize they're human, that we're all together, that there's a life beyond whatever my short-sighted circumstances may be. So those are the biggest things I'm involved with is the podcast and doing comedy and just trying to do what I can to make a difference with the skills and the experiences that I've gone through and that God's delivered me through.
I think that's wonderful. And what I really love about that is I believe that God gave us all special skills and talents. And we can either embrace those wholly and just go with it and figure out how to make life work, or we can resist it and be miserable. Because I think, I see so many people that are just stressed out and anxious about their work. And sometimes it's not even the job itself, it's the way they're looking at it. And that's what I love about what I do is I can sometimes help them take that shift and refocus it around and go, oh, I didn't realize that that's what God wanted me to do here. And so, but yeah, if you're miserable, you're doing something wrong. So the other thing that I really love is that you're using humor and in those gifts. Improv, I have to tell you, is not my bag. I've tried to do that kind of stuff at some of my coaching conferences. I know that they use that to help us kind of lighten up or whatever. And I would just as soon, as I already told you before we hopped on, I'm that introvert that would just as soon hide out in the corner if I could. So being on a stage and just making things up as I go, which ironically, I love to make things up as I go, just not improv.
Sure.
Not that format. So I'm interested to know when you were telling us about what you do, you talked about how, the key is to bring people together
Hmm.
and to get them laughing. So we're kind of in a different time in not just our history, but the world's history right now, where we're all being forced to not be together. So do you have ideas on how you can use that gift, how we can all be together, come together in some way to still enjoy those gifts that we have and feel good about ourselves?
Absolutely. As we're recording this at the end of March, most of America and much of the world are, very separate right now because of the virus scare, and some of it justified, some of it may not be. But we're all, we're doing what we can to make sure that we protect each other and keep each other safe. With what we're doing with the improv ministry, last night we actually did an experimental show where we all connected via Zoom, and we simulcast our Zoom meeting on our Facebook page and actually did a live improv show together. It was, there were a few glitches here and there. Internet connectivity kind of played with us a couple times, but all in all, it was really well received. It was a lot of fun because we do have the video capability, so we have that still a little bit of a connection. And the ladies that I perform with, they're all incredibly talented. And for half an hour, we had fun together. We hadn't seen each other in a couple weeks because of all this, and we so far had at least 260 people that watched the video. So even if they watched for a few minutes and maybe got one or two laughs during those few minutes, I hope that God was able to minister to them and distract them from everything that's going on. And one of the most beautiful things, and I quote this every interview I give because it's one of the most beautiful quotes I've ever heard. Michael Jr., he's a stand-up comic. Many people know who he is. He gave an interview where he said, "Laughter is the tangible evidence of hope." And I cite that all the time. So if at any point during our broadcast for 30 minutes or whoever replayed it, if you're able to laugh, you've got tangible evidence that there's hope beyond the circumstance of the sequestering, the lockdowns, the shelter in place. There's a much bigger world than that. And who cares what's going on? Let's just be together. Let's watch a video together. There's plenty of great opportunities out there. And so with us, we're going to try to do this every week. Get together for half an hour on our Facebook page. Let the audience give us some feedback, give us some suggestions, and we're just going to create some stuff as best as possible. So 20, 30 minutes a week, we forget where we're at.
I love that. And I'm guessing you said you had 265. I'm guessing that's a higher number than you would have had you just gotten together in a room somewhere normally.
Yeah, that short of the time that we opened for Bob Smiley a few weeks ago, that is definitely our largest crowd is 260 people.
Okay.
So it was really it's a blessing to us to know that people are seeing us, and hopefully they're enjoying us, so that when everything returns to a semi-normal state, maybe they'll call us and say, "Hey, come out to our church or our fundraiser."
Yeah. So two
That's kind
things.
of the side effect of that, but the biggest thing is just to give that distraction for us as performers and for people who may watch.
So two things. One, is this something that I would be able to provide a link for so that people could go and watch your improv as they wanted to, or is that on your website? If I just share, how could people find it if they wanted to go see what you're talking about?
Okay, it's available on our Facebook page at Wellversed CMDY. And we also will be sharing it Facebook, on Twitter, uh, on all the major platforms. We're at Wellverse CMDY,
So we
and that's
can,
all.
I was going to say, we can get some links after we're done here so that people
Absolutely.
can just click on it. Perfect. So then the next thing you went into was, then after all this scare is over and life, I don't know if, I hope it kind of doesn't go exactly back to what normal was. I hope we kind of create a new normal here.
Sure.
There's some good things that are going to come out of this, I think. And one of them is just being more, hopefully, slowed down and connected with who we are and just relaxed about life, hopefully a little bit. But so you guys do go on the road and
Mhm.
do this. So talk a little bit about that, if you would.
Sure. This group formed in 2013. Our first show was actually a fundraiser for a couple of politicians, and ever since then, I've been hooked on performing and trying to make a difference. Because when we were able to finally get that first show out of the way, it was like, okay, we can actually do this. And we've had turnover because God calls people to different seasons, and we've done community events like outreaches, fundraisers. We've done some children, youth lock-ins. Um, and personally, I've for the last year and a half, I've done improv training as well. I volunteer at a group called Salt and Light Coalition, and they work exclusively with women who have escaped and survived sex trafficking. And I go with these ladies and I teach them improv. Um, we're trying to improve their communication, improve self-confidence, tap into some of that creativity that maybe have lost because of the stuff that they've been through. And if nothing else, for 1 hour a month, they get to laugh like kids again and kind of forget the the, the burdens and the scars that they've been carrying for a while. So improv is more than just performance. It teaches you as an adult, as a cynical, scarred adult, to tap back into some of that creativity as a kid. You look at a kid on Christmas or their birthday, and half the time they're more interested in the box than they are the toy that was in it. That's because there's more to do with the box, because the box is limited, unlimited in what you can do. The box could be a spaceship, it could be an elevator, it could be a house, it could be a car. Whereas the toy, it makes a lot of flashing noises and beeps, but it's got a specific purpose. Where the box has much more to it. So with improv, we can kind of tap back into that, and it's spiritual too, because when you think about it, Jesus was very clear in saying that we need to come like children to the Father. And that's because there's that joy and that trust and that um, unshakable faith of a child that happens. And improv can help tap into some of that and maybe break through some of those walls. So whether it's performing and bringing laughter, or it's teaching and bringing laughter, but also building some skills, and that's what we want to do, to make a difference and to help people.
Yeah, no, that's really beautiful, and some really great examples of some different populations that you've served and helped find a better place. So humor basically is what I hear you saying. Correct me if I'm wrong, but what I hear you saying is you're just coming at it, your ministry, from a different direction, and just saying humor is a way of connecting people back with themselves and also with God. Is that right?
Absolutely. Um, I think of you think of Jesus and the 12 disciples. They traveled together for the better part of 3 years, and the love and devotion that 11 of the 12 had. Um, you don't build that because somebody's just this dictatorial, thou shalt, thou shalt, thou shalt. There's a relationship there, and you don't get these kind of people together that long without having moments of humor and levity. Kay Warren, Rick Warren's wife, wrote a book, Choose Joy, and she gave this really interesting perspective of when Jesus would use the examples of the camel through the eye of the needle. She kind of pictured him as making that kind of a facetious statement, like, a camel could get through the eye of a needle quicker than a rich man can get to heaven. And she sees a lot of humor in Jesus, and I believe that there's humor there because, number one, he was a mama's boy, and mama's boys have a good sense of humor. And you can't have 13 people hanging out that closely, that intimately, without moments of levity. So I believe that humor is a gift from God. And I think that when you laugh, you kind of see that there is hope. There is something different out there. When you have hope, then you realize that there's a source of hope. And when you realize that there's a source of hope, you start to realize who that source is. And God, through Jesus Christ, empowered by the Holy Spirit, that's where real, lasting hope comes from. So if you can laugh and break through some of those barricades, there's really only one end result. You see where the hope comes from. Now, as with every gift from God, sometimes it's abused and mistreated. With like humor is sometimes is not very edifying and not very uplifting. And we like to prove that just because it's Christian and clean doesn't mean it's going to be lame. We actually think because we serve the Creator and we're in His image, we can be just as creative as He is. So again, the creativity, the being able to be inoffensive, the way to be super creative, all of this is going to point right back to the Creator.
Yeah. No, I love that. That is so cool. As I mentioned, I'm not, and it was funny as you were talking about improv. It's like, maybe I'd be better at that if I really gave it a try than I think I would. I don't know, but because I do like being creative, I like thinking outside the box. I like finding solutions from a different way than it's
Mm-hmm.
always been handed to us, and that's what I really like about what you're doing is basically helping people see opportunities in new ways to get that hope and trust that there is a better life out there. So,
Yeah. And even if there's not a better life on this earth, there's a better life to come because, in a sense, living this life is like ripping off a band-aid.
yeah.
But 10,000 years from now, nothing that happens here is going to matter. None of the scars that we go through are going to matter. What's going to matter is that we're with God in eternity on the streets of gold, just celebrating the beauty of what He has to offer us.
So what do you think, just to maybe lighten this up a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
what are some of the things you think Jesus might be looking down at us right now going, oh, folks? Do you got any examples? I know I just kind of pulled that out on you, but
Oh,
he's got to be just laughing at us right now, don't you think?
I think by and large, most of our political debates, Jesus is like, come on, guys, you're missing the point.
Yeah.
Because right now, Jesus is looking down on us. He goes, I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not even a libertarian. Stop. And I think because of the love and how much He adores us, He laughs instead of being offended. I think that there are things that happen in His name that He gets offended over. But I think He just laughs at us and thinking, oh, Jesus would be a Republican because of this, that, and the other thing. No, Jesus would be a Democrat because this, that, and the other thing. And He's like, guys, stop. It's okay. Love each other. That's the biggest point. And I think He laughs at that. I think He laughs. I probably think that He laughs when we pray for, like some sports fans will pray for their team, like, Lord, please let the Cubs win a series before I die. He you know, I don't think He laughs maliciously, but I think He thinks it's funny, kind of like as a parent, you laugh when you see how important something is to your kid. I don't have kids, I have cats, so when I see how important things are to these cats, like attention, as you can see in the video, my cat's like, Dave, pay attention. Um, it's a loving laugh of, okay, yeah, I understand this is important to you. So I think, and I know that there are people that pray over soap opera characters. Like, oh
I'm
Lord,
okay.
if
I
you.
really am a big fan of one of the soap operas, but I've never prayed for one of the characters.
But it's simple things like that. I think that God finds humor in, much in the same way that a mom or dad finds humor in what a young child values and thinks is the most urgent life or death thing ever to happen. So
And in
yeah.
the same token, I think there are times when we try to teach our children lessons. He tries to teach us lessons. And when we
Mm-hmm.
don't get it, we just get to keep trying it over and over again, right?
It's like, no, Daddy, I can do it. Okay, go ahead and try. Oh, you fell over. Here, let's do it my way this time.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's cool. So has there been uh, a time in your life, the name of the podcast is Longing for More. Has
Mm-hmm.
there been a time in your life when you had that sense, your soul knew that there had to be more in life, and God was just kind of knocking on the door saying, come on, let's go do this?
I think that would be a great way to describe my testimony. Most of my life, starting in high school and until about 2013. I was battling depression, and part of that depression was, looking back and seeing that I had a longing for more, that there was something more that my life was supposed to have. There was something missing, and for that time, it really was God being a center point, being the center of my life. I had accepted Christ as a sixth grader, but never really was discipled, so I didn't know what it meant to be a Christ follower. I knew what it meant to be a Christian, as far as like going to church every once in a while, things like that. But I had that longing for more, which was first God, first Christ, and then being used by God to make a difference. I always tried to fill it with some sort of acting or performing. I did pro wrestling for 8 years as an outlet. I did radio. I was a DJ for many years. And it was all me trying to be in front of people on my own will, for my own thing. And I was longing for more, but I had to wait until I was able to follow God's lead to find what that more was. And that more is performing to give God glory, to bring people closer to God. So he's redeemed all those years of depression and battling suicidal thoughts. And he's redeemed that through comedy and allowed me to use those scars and those experiences now as a way to serve others. Um, so, my longing is my testimony, because I was longing now for God and for purpose in my life through God.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I think that you hit on something that I think is really prevalent in the world today, and that is that there are many of us who call ourselves Christians who haven't taken the steps to really mature
Mm-hmm.
in that relationship. We've just kind of stagnated at a level and haven't even realized, and myself included, didn't realize until, and I think it was just a progression through the years.
Mm-hmm.
But until I became an entrepreneur and really had to put myself out there, did I realize how hard it was to do that, and had to
Right.
learn to trust God, and we've just developed such a different relationship since I've kind of had to step back and say, okay, I equate it as learning what's mine and what's his.
Mm-hmm.
How much can I be responsible for, and at what point do I just say, okay, I've done all that, now I need to just trust that you'll take it wherever you need it to go from here. And that's been a huge step for me. Getting back to the humor thing, though, I assume that, and I've had conversations like this before, where people use humor to cover up that pain that they're feeling in their life. Can you speak to that at all?
Absolutely. Most of my humor was developed because I was trying to hide behind it. There's like this multi-level thing of, first, I didn't want people to know how I felt, so I tried to deflect it and hide it behind joking, usually a lot of self-deprecating humor. And it was also in the midst of my depression, I felt no value unless I could make somebody laugh. If I could make somebody laugh, then I had worth. I could justify my existence for that moment. So it was that thing of, I wanted to find value in other people's laughter, because if they could laugh, they also weren't going to feel the same way I felt. So I felt, the darkness and the weight inside. But if you were laughing, then I could survive. I could live a little bit longer and justify it. But if I failed, if I said something that was embarrassing, or if I took a joke too far, and then suddenly it was just this vicious cycle of me self-condemning myself, because, see, you have no worth. You're a failure. You can't even make this person laugh, or this, that, and the other thing. So it was a defense mechanism, so nobody could see how I was feeling. Is also how I tried to prevent other people from feeling that way. And the way I always describe it is, I used humor as a way to hide myself. Now I use it as a way to reveal who he is.
Hmm. Ooh, I like that a lot. That's, yeah, big change there.
Yeah.
Big change. That's important, and I think that there are a lot of people that need to hear that shift
Hmm.
for themselves. So I appreciate you sharing that with us very much. So you shared your quote from Michael Jr., who I'm not
Hmm.
familiar with. Is that your favorite saying, or do you have a verse that you'd like to share with the audience today as well?
Um, I've got a couple. Like Exodus 31 is really near and dear in my heart. It's a story of Bezalel and him being called by God as a creative craftsman to serve in the construction of the temple, um, because he was gifted specifically by God through the Holy Spirit to be somebody that can create things to honor and glorify God. He's the creator's creator. So I love that passage about Bezalel. One of the verses or passages that really speaks to me is 1 Corinthians 12, 4 through 6. Um, there are different kinds of spiritual gifts, but the same Spirit is the source of them all. There are different kinds of service, but we serve the same Lord. God works in different ways, but it is the same God who does the work in all of us. And that to me, it was fundamental in founding the comedy troupe and has really stuck with me these 7 years as one of the foundational passages in all the things that I do, because there are different kinds of spiritual gifts. And I think sometimes in the church, we don't necessarily respect them all. We try to put all the gifts into a specific box. One of the guy that actually turned me on to Exodus 31, his name is Randall Flynn. He's a dancer, which is not typically thought of as a ministry. But there's beauty in the art of dance that could only be from God when it's done to honor God. And he talked about Bezalel and how Bezalel was this creative man that was called by God. And so often the church tends to leave artists and creative people as kind of orphans, that they have this wonderful gift that God wants them to use, but because the church or older people or people kind of set in their ways don't recognize the gift, they decide that it's not worthy. So here he was willing to give this gift and this talent of dance to the church to serve God. And people in the church said, well, let's see what else God has for you. And I think humor, acting, I think singing and music is pretty well universally accepted as a way to worship because we do it in every church service. But comedy can be so healing in so many ways. Dance can tell some stories that the spoken word can't. And there are millions of other ways to serve God and to make a difference, because every human being is different. So God's going to reach every human being in a different way. So that's why 1 Corinthians 12, 4 through 6 really speaks to me, because there are different kinds of gifts and there are different kinds of service, but we all serve the same Lord. So if the church, the big C universal church, can understand, when you have the heart for God, have a heart for Jesus, and you're willing to use the gifts, the experiences and talents that you have, that it's all good, because it's all pointing back to the cross. It's all pointing back to God. A friend of mine, he does tattoos as a way to service God. And some people are like, oh, you can't tattoo. No, that's taking Leviticus out of context. Um, but his ministry is he covers and removes tattoos of people that have been in gangs or have been sex trafficked, because they're marked. And when you cover that up, you're literally breaking a chain. And who is the greatest of all time at breaking chains? So how can that not be a ministry to serve God? So there are certainly different types of service, but only one God.
That is so cool. I love that. You know what came to my mind when you were talking about dancing is David dancing in the streets. He was
Yeah.
no holds barred with him, right? He loved to just let it all go. I am actually, one of the things that I really enjoy is exercise is kind of uh, too much in the box for me, but I have
Mm-hmm.
a routine I do that's just basically a dance, and you just do kind of whatever, it's body groove, and it's so freeing to be able to just express yourself in that way, and it's also helps get your creative juices flowing, or like the way that I like to use my gifts is to write and express with
Hmm.
words. And so we're all holistic beings, right? And it all comes together. So
And think of it this way: when you're dancing, you're breaking off the chains of the world and the cynicism of the world. And once that's gone, that's suddenly freeing up your creative mind to go. So, I mean, there's a beauty in dancing and just letting it loose. So that's awesome.
yeah, very cool. All right. Is there anything else that you would like to share today that we haven't already talked about?
Sure. One thing that I do on every interview that I try to make sure I include is if there's anybody that picks up this podcast at any point and you're struggling where I was with depression, with thinking of taking that final devastating step, take a moment and send me an email. My email box is always going to be open 24/7, 365, or 366 on leap year. Email me, Dave at gifts4glory.com. That's gifts, the number 4glory.com. And let me know. Talk to me. No two people's experience is going to be the same. So I'm not going to pretend to have all the answers. But I am definitely going to be there to listen. I'm definitely going to be there to encourage as much as possible. Because no matter what you're going through, the devil, the enemy, is going to tell you that you're alone, that nobody understands, that nobody really wants to be bothered. But I'm here to tell you that it's not a bother. Email me. Let me know. It'll come to my phone, and I will answer as soon as possible, and we'll talk. So that's the thing I always leave is if you have that struggle, or if you know somebody that's in that struggle, let me know, and I'd love to be the conversation and just be there to listen. I'll be there to answer any questions. And if I don't know the answer, I'll find it for you. But you're not alone, and don't ever feel like you are alone, because there are people that God has helped and has delivered, and I want to help be a small piece in helping you get out of it.
That's really that's a really generous offer. And I know from just this short time that we've even been talking today that you mean that sincerely. And
Yeah,
I am honored to be able to extend that on to the listeners who maybe they themselves aren't there, but they may know somebody who is.
yeah,
And that's important to share that. So especially now, we tried to lighten it up a little bit, but the
yeah,
reality is that there are a lot of people that are in a lot of pain right now for so many different reasons. And they need to know that they're not alone ever, that God is always with them. But sometimes, not sometimes, God always
yeah,
works through the people he brings into our lives. And he can, this podcast could pop up at just the right time for just that person who needs it. And that's the beauty of him working behind the scenes. And that's the part of the work I was talking about earlier about what's
yeah,
mine, what's
yeah.
his. All we can do is put it out there, and then he has to get it to the people who need to hear it, right?
Absolutely. So yeah, I know that, and one of the things that I think sometimes, because I do comedy, is it's hard for me to like just be joke after joke after joke, because my improv is based on situations. So this, I hope we had some laughs,
Right.
but I really wanted to share the heart behind it too.
And the heart is really what's important. They can click on the link for the laughs, right?
Sure.
The message is what we needed to get across today. And I think that you did a beautiful job of doing just that. And I can't thank you enough for taking the time to sit down and visit today and share that beautiful message. There are people that need to hear that. So thank you for that gift.
Absolutely. And so to end on a light note, let's end with a quick joke.
Okay.
Uh, Knock knock.
Who's there?
Interrupting evangelist.
Interrupting
Jesus
evangelist.
saves. That was probably the lame.
Oh, that was good. Oh, yeah, you got me. You got me. I was like, that one's an awkward one, but yep, he does. Every single time.
All right,
Yeah.
here's a really good one.
Okay.
So I've been thinking about what Jesus is going to do after millennial reign. He comes back, everything's good. Then he retires. What's he going to do? I'm thinking he opens up a barber shop where the disciples, people who are in heaven, go in, get their hair cut, their beard trimmed, and I think that he's got a great name for it. It's going to be called Jesus Shaves.
I see the sign already.
Yeah.
Yes, perfect.
Well, folks, I was so blessed to have Dave as a guest on my show today. It's always amazing to see how God uses each and every one of us in a different way to share his message. And it was just a joy to be a part of that conversation. I hope that you were blessed by it as well. And if you know of someone who maybe needs to hear that message today, I ask that you please share it with them. There are so many people that are hurting in the world today, and they need to know that there is hope. There is a way out of whatever darkness they're dealing with. Again, you can connect with Dave at giftsforglory, that's the number 4.com. Or you can always, if you have trouble there, just reach out to me at vannajohnson.com and I'll get you lined up with him. So I appreciate you stopping by so much today. I know how precious your time is, and it's just a blessing to have you here. I hope that you will take this message and go be blessed and live your more.